All right, welcome to Fort Myers. We're at JetBlue Park. I'm Jason Mastrodonato, the Red Sox beat writer, alongside Steve Buckley, longtime Boston Herald columnist, and we are going to talk some Red Sox with you guys this afternoon. We're going to answer some of your questions and talk about some things that we've seen here from the first week or two at Fort Myers. And I'm going to start today with what's going to be the topic of my story tomorrow. Somebody that I've really enjoyed watching play is Mookie Betts. And we've talked a little bit about it, Buck and I here, and I really think this guy is an MVP candidate this year. He finished 18th in MVP voting last year as a 22-year-old. Had 42 doubles, 18 homers, 21 steals, and hit .290. By the way, also played great center field. If he takes one step forward here, all of a sudden he's a top 10 contender, Buck. What do you want to see from him this year?
Well, first of all, I think every year for the next 15 years, if I'm asked to predict who the MVP will be, I'm going to pick Mike Trout, because about 7 of those times I'm going to be correct.
Right.
So, let's use that as a starting off point. Now, can Mookie Betts repeat? Yes. Can he be MVP? Of course he can, because he's got all the tools to be that great player. And we've talked about him settling in his right fielder for the Red Sox. I think he's going to be a very good right fielder. Is he going to be Dwight Evans? No, because Dwight Evans was in a class by himself.
How do we know that? He was a great center fielder.
I saw Dwight Evans for 15 years. He's in the short list with defensively in right field with Roberto Clemente. Canigliaro is a great right field. Reggie Smith in his day.
Red Sox fans are probably killing me for saying that.
And as they should, because Dwight Evans is the gold standard for defensive right field.
Right?
He had a lot more than the arm.
Okay.
I mean, and the thing with right field at Fenway Park, you can play out there effortlessly. And Trot Nixon, by the way, effortlessly for 6, 7, 8 years as a right fielder. The problem with right field at Fenway Park, your consistency is what you should strive for. Right field can make you look really, really bad. Now, I'm looking right now at the faux Fenway Park. We're at JetBlue, so I can see the right field corner over there. It's at 302, I think, that it shuts out to 380, and you're running directly into that fence. Mookie Betts really mastered it toward the end of the season, and I know I'm talking more about his defense than his offense.
But that plays a big role.
It does play a big role, absolutely.
And that's part of what makes him such a complete player. And remember, he played, 30 games in right field last year, I think? I mean, he did not play much in right field, so there's still some growing for him to do, I think. He could definitely take the next step. Why don't we get into the questions?
Well, somebody said he has to stop falling over the wall out there.
Well,
I've seen a lot of guys fall over that wall, and I saw Frank Robinson day game 69 or 70 in a game where it went to like 13 innings. The Orioles scored like 6 runs in the top of the 13. You can look it up in Baseball Reference. But I saw him dive into that right field fence to save a home run that would have ended the game. I've also seen guys like William Alpena not so gracefully fall over there, and all kinds of havoc ensued. So, again, in fairness to Mookie Betts, a lot of bad stuff can happen along that wall.
We've seen some really bad plays out there. And the thing that I thought stood out to me last year with his defense is that he was like this close to making a spectacular play every night, right?
Yep.
Jackie Bradley set the standard for being elite, the best center fielder I've seen probably in my career covering baseball.
Best in mine.
Okay.
And I've got 3 years on here.
But he was so close. And the thing that Arnie Bailey, the former outfield coach, always said was...
Organizational scapegoat, Arnie Bailey.
Right.
Yes.
Kind of took the fall maybe for Hanley Ramirez. But the thing that Arnie would always say is once he starts making those plays, that's when he's going to be a top-notch defender. And I thought he was so close. By the end of the season last year, we started seeing him make those plays.
Absolutely.
So you add up the defense, you add up the fact that he had 18 home runs last year. That was his first full season in the big leagues. There was a long stretch last season where he was not a very good player. He went through some slumps, and he still hit .290 with an 830 OPS. That's what you look for from growth in young players: is shorten the slumps, take steps up with power, with maturity. And you think he looks bigger, right?
I think he's put on. I'm not being dramatic here. Like 5 pounds of muscle. That's just eyeballing it as he walks by. To use a favorite line of Terry Franconen's, who was managing the Red Sox, he figured it out. I mean, Terry used to always say that about young players that came up later on, like Brandon Moss and Josh Raddick and so forth, and or Jed Lowry. He's got to figure it out. Figure it out means gain major league experience, there is nothing like playing in the big leagues. The way the ball comes off the bat, the different dimensions, the lights, the expectations, the fans, the pregame, all of that plays into it, and you got to figure it out. We saw him figure it out on the fly last year.
Yeah, we did. And if you look across this roster, you could find guys. I mean, we've been questioning everybody early in camp. Pablo Sandoval, Hanley Ramirez, a lot of these guys that we're questioning. You could also find guys and say, well, this guy can take a big step forward next year. This guy can take a big step forward next year.
A whole bunch of guys took a step backward last year.
Sure.
Was the problem, but.
Yeah, older guys.
Yes.
But young guys still took steps forward.
Yep.
So that's why I think there's such a wide spectrum of possibilities for this team this year, is there's so many guys who could go forward or backward. It's not like there's a lot of guarantees.
Are you worried about Pablo's weight?
The obvious question. Buck, why don't you take this one?
Yes. I mean, I'm not going to. There's a lot of nonsense being spewed out. Organizationally, and I suppose if I was in their shoes, I'd do the same thing, but not as demonstratively as I think the Red Sox are doing it. John Henry, 17%. All that matters is what happens on April 4th. That from Tom Werner. John Farrell singing happy songs in his dealings with the media about Pablo. The fact of the matter is, I don't like it when people say, well, he's been heavy his whole career and he won 3 World Series with the Giants. Look at the numbers, people. His offensive numbers, his OPS, demonstrably has gone down 4 consecutive seasons. 4 consecutive seasons. Now, that is a trend. And it seems to me that he's 29 years old. He's as heavy now as he's been most seasons. And I'm thinking, okay, you can't just say he won 3 World Series with the Giants anymore. You've got to start making changes. He's going to be in his 30s and beyond, hopefully, if he can continue to play Major League Baseball. If he wants to turn things around, stem the tide, change those numbers, he's got to make changes here, in my opinion.
He has to play better defense, first of all. I mean, obviously he's got to hit better. And I'm not sure how much his weight has to do with hitting. He probably can be a great hitter. You know, Mo Vaughn was a great hitter and was a big fella. He's got to play defense for him to really be worth this contract. He's making $17 million a year. If he's just an average third base, if he's a below average third baseman again, we're going to move him to first base, especially.
Yeah, and there's one more thing real quick. There was a season a few years back with the Giants where he lost weight and got off to a terrible start. That's a crutch. I'm sick of people saying, well, he had that year where he lost 18 pounds and look at the start he got off to. I don't know why that happened, and I wasn't there covering the Giants. I think that's a convenient excuse people are using, as if to say, you better not lose too much weight or look what will happen. So, no, lose the weight and get in shape.
And the thing we haven't seen either yet is a lot of these big guys get hurt later in their career. Prince Fielder was great.
Yep.
All of a sudden got hurt. I mean, we haven't even seen Sandoval really have to battle the injury bug yet.
Yep.
So that would be another concern as time goes on, the bigger he gets.
Yes.
How can he make big-time money and not take care of himself?
That's a question best posed to Pablo Sandoval. I mean, to answer that question requires, for me anyway, getting in between his ears. And it's commitment, it's pride, it's a whole bunch of cliches, frankly, but listen, I've been around a long time, and I've seen players as they get older make adjustments. Yastrzemski, again, Hall of Fame player, so I apologize, but as his athletic skills and his body betrayed him, he had to make changes, which is why he changed his stance so many times. And Yastrzemski late in his career said, I wish I knew now what I knew then. So it was knowledge of the game that helped Yastrzemski, but he did have to make changes.
I just think everybody's different. I mean, I'm not making excuses for Sandoval. I just think we would like the perfect athlete to be totally committed to his body and totally committed to his work ethic and everything. The fact is, there's a lot of professional athletes out there who ride on talent. And I'm not saying Sandoval is one of them. I'm sure he has to work hard to do a lot of the things that he does. But he's gotten far with the body that he has. That's why I'm not totally sold that this is going to be a lost season from him just because he doesn't look good.
I'm totally sold.
All right.
Will the Sox go after any more free agents?
I don't think so. Not right now. They really just don't have any holes on the roster. I mean, they need to see everybody play, from Rusney Castillo in left field to Jackie Bradley Jr. in center field, Sandoval and Hanley Ramirez. Hanley's the big question mark for me, because if he fails, I'm sorry, I don't care how much money he's making. This team has to win this year, and if he's a disaster, they're not going to keep him on the roster. They're going to find.
Plus, in terms of signing additional free agents, the way I look at the roster right now, they've already got their insurance at most positions. They've
Right.
got two guys who are big league ready, in my opinion, to be catchers, Vasquez and Swihart behind the plate. If Hanley fails at first base, they've got Travis Shaw. Brock Cole can play a variety of infield positions. If Pablo fails at third, you could conceivably move Travis Shaw to third base. The reason they signed Young is he's insurance for all three outfield positions because he could be an everyday outfielder, and they've hinted as much about getting him
Right.
playing time. They've got a solid rotation. I don't think there's a spot right now for Henry Owens in the
Maybe.
starting rotation unless they do something with Kelly, and they built up their bullpen. So as of right now, I don't think there's a need to sign a free agent. I think they'll open the season with what they've got. Now, this isn't to say July 31st, if they're out of it, as they've done the last couple of years, they'll just sell the whole team. If they're in it, they'll make changes where they need to.
And that's the big difference, I think, from
Yeah.
last year where we had Ben Sherrington. I understand they were not in a position to win, but in the years that they were, even in 2013, they added Jake Peavy and they added Matt Thornton. They
Yep.
weren't huge additions. They didn't give any real prospects away. They gave Jose Iglesias away, who they didn't need anyways. Now you have Dabrowski come in here, and he's willing to move prospects.
Yep.
And he has to. They have to win. So I think July 31st is when they might make any necessary moves, and they'll unload prospects if they have to.
How's Pedroia's hand?
Everything we've heard about Dustin Pedroia is he's healthy. I mean, that was the big storyline for him coming into camp last year was he finally had an off season where he was healthy to prepare. And, you know, he posted the picture on Instagram doing this. And he claimed in spring training he was going to hit a ton of home runs.
Yeah.
And we saw it. The power was back. I think he had 12 homers last year, and he didn't even play for a couple months. So his hand is fine. That wasn't the issue. The hamstring is what cost him time last year. And those things come up and then they go away. It seems like that's not an issue.
Yeah,
you never know with Pedroia.
The issue with Pedroia to me, and this is an encouraging sign, is that most of his injuries, and you may correct me, you're around the team every day, most of his injuries have been episodic, where he fouled the ball off his foot in Colorado, there's a play here, a play at first base, the hyperextending is, was it his hamstring? Yeah, and it's not like he just suddenly got old and slow. Those are episodic injuries. It's the same thing with Jacoby Ellsbury. He had two episodic injuries, running into his third baseman early in the season, and then I think with Sean Rodriguez fell on his shoulder and played second base early in the season. Those are episodic injuries. It's not breaking down. There's a big difference there.
Yeah, and I'm not totally worried about Pedroia. I think he is who he is. I mean, he gets injured sometimes. There's not much. And this stuff about the Sox, all of a sudden they're going to play him last. I don't buy it. They've been saying that for years.
Yeah. I think they do need to build in mental health days for him, again, to use an old Terry Francona line, to save Pedroia from himself. He's incapable of playing at 70 or 80%. There's an old Pete Rose line I like to use. Pete Rose said, I always hustled because I feared if I didn't hustle, I'd hurt myself. There's a lot of truth in that. There's a way to play baseball in his head. That's the way he played baseball. If he gets away from that, that's when injuries happen. I think Pedroia's mindset is exactly the same thing, which means as he gets older, you have to kind of sometimes save him from himself if possible.
Right.
How do Koji and Taz look?
You know, these questions are always tough to answer. How do they look?
Jazz is eating good, isn't he?
He's eating good.
Yeah, I mean,
I saw him at Starbucks yesterday.
He's a big guy, isn't he? He's not the real thin kid that he used to be.
Yeah, he didn't order 6 pounds of that banana bread they have there at Starbucks, so
No.
that's a good sign for him.
News when it breaks, right here.
Yeah. Listen, the fact that Koji's on the field right now and throwing bullpen sessions is a great sign. He's 40 years old. Sometimes the older guys slow things down, especially in the beginning, go really slow, right? You know all about being old and slow, right?
Wow, you've been sitting on that one for a while. That's good. I like that. We'll talk later.
But you know how the pitchers come to camp, a lot of the older guys especially take things really slow. Koji
Yes.
looks like he's trying to get after it again. And that's always been his MO. I mean, he would come out of a game after a save in the ninth inning, especially if he only threw 10 or 15 pitches, and we'd see him in the workout room just getting after it for 10, 15 minutes in there.
Yeah,
So-
some guys are like that. You may remember Young Kim when he played for the Red Sox 10 or 12 years ago, and the game would be over, and I remember I'd be doing TV hits out in the field before writing after the game, and every minute, Young Kim would be running behind me, because he would do laps around the dirt after every game, and just some guys are calibrated that way.
Yeah, and that's worked for Koji in the past.
Yeah.
I don't think you're too worried about injuries with him, even though he's 40. Talk about injuries with Pedroia. The one injury Koji had last year, he got hit by a line drive.
Yeah.
he tried to make a barehanded play, which might have been ill-advised. Afterward, he said he had no regrets and he was trying to help the team, which says a lot about Koji, although I think they'd like him to maybe be safer this year. But they're not relying on Koji anymore. It'd be one thing if it was just Koji. Now it's Craig Kimbrel, who I think people don't even realize how good this guy is. He's the best ERA in Major League history for a minimum of 300 innings. He's got a 1.63 ERA in his career. He's been incredible. He's been better than anybody. And now you got him in the ninth inning, and Carson Smith comes in here. And this is a bullpen, I think, Buck, that can really cover up some of the mistakes by the starting pitching.
It's a good point. And in my own dealings with friends and speaking gigs and just being around town and so forth, so many people ask me about David Price during the off season. Hardly anyone would ask me about Kimbrel, and even then it would be the any more questions kind of thing, and someone would ask about Kimbrel. And it's a very important pickup for the Red Sox, and something that people should be focusing on more because, you know, as you said, is if you look up his numbers the last 4 seasons, they're pretty impressive.
Yeah, everything that guy does on the field has been really impressive. So you got him in the ninth, Koji in the eighth, Tazawa in the seventh, and Carson Smith, who I think is going to be an excellent addition to this team.
If he throws strikes.
If he throws strikes. Yeah, well, of course. He only had we only have one season to base off. But, I mean, that trade was great for the Red Sox. They gave up Wade Miley, who they really didn't need. They have starting pitching depth. And that's another thing I think, Buck, is even if some of these starters struggle, I'm not totally concerned because they do have some depth. I don't think it's a great rotation, don't by any means. But if Joe Kelly isn't great, Henry Owens can come in there, and Brian Johnson.
Yeah, I disagree. I'm not sold on Henry Owens. I'm not sold on Joe Kelly. I'm not sold on Priscilla.
I'm not saying I'm sold. They have options.
They have options, but it's like I'd like to see 3 solid starters that you know are going to put up numbers. Obviously, David Price, they've got him in the prime of his career. I'd be shocked if he didn't be lights out this season. Buckholz has been a riddle now for several seasons. Priscilla was a disaster for a good half of last season. Joe Kelly had to go back to the minors. And again, Eduardo Rodriguez, to me, and we've talked about it at great length, he is that guy that you got to keep an eye on because I think he's ready to make the leap to be a big-time Major League pitcher.
Yeah, the thing is with Eduardo Rodriguez, you don't see too many 22-year-olds who come up and have success like he did. And it's not always guaranteed that these guys are going to take the next step the next year. I did some research recently, and I looked over the past 5 or 10 years, and it was 2 out of 3 22-year-olds who have seasons as good as Eduardo Rodriguez does. 2 out of 3 don't have worse seasons the following year. So sometimes there's some bumps in the road with these guys, but what do you see from Rodriguez that makes you think he can take that next step?
Raw talent for openers. He was certainly very impressive last season, and again, another great pickup in that, as much as I'd love to see Andrew Miller here, you wish they had re-signed Andrew Miller as a free agent, but if he improves on his breaking pitch, John Farrell talked about that today, and I hate to stoop to another cliche, but he stays within himself, which is something that's hard to explain. He's just got to grow. I don't want him to be too comfortable, and that's actually what I'm writing about tomorrow. I think a little bit of discomfort by Eduardo Rodriguez. Don't go walking around thinking, look at me, I've arrived in the big leagues. I want to see him work to improve himself as a Major League player.
Yeah, that trade, I mean, that speaks to how good Andrew Miller was that year.
Yeah.
They got a rental reliever they unloaded to get a prospect as good as him. I mean, that was a crazy trade by the Orioles looking back on it.
What is Wright's role this year?
Stephen Wright, the knuckled baller, he's going to be a depth starter. I think he could win the long man spot. I actually think he'll probably be on the opening day roster, especially early in the season when you need a long man a lot. I always thought Stephen Wright was kind of an underrated player. I mean, you need those guys, those fifth starters, the long men who could be serviceable for you. Knuckleballers never get respect, as you know, but Stephen Wright would probably be.
The Red Sox have always had that guy who Devern Hensack, Abe Alvarez. They've always had a guy who comes and goes as you need that guy. Suddenly there's a guy tweaks his elbow, you need to give him a day off, you call him up from Pawtucket, or he's the long guy, as you suggested. He's going to get his innings, and also, as Jason said, early in the season, no one throws complete games. Everyone's on tighter pitch counts, weather's cold, they're coming out of spring training. It's an opportunity, if he's that long guy, it's an opportunity for him to put up some numbers. And if a Kelly were to falter or one of the other starters were to get hurt, and God knows we've seen it from Buckholz over the years, then Wright may be able to take advantage of that.
Yeah. I think the one thing I want to ask you about, because I haven't even asked your opinion off camera about this before we turn this Periscope off for today, is Xander Bogaerts, because we haven't talked about Bogaerts yet this spring. He's been out there, doing what he does every single day. He looks great in the batting cage, looks great at shortstop. Is he one of those guys that you just don't even worry about on this team?
Well, to the degree that there's so much more to worry about, no. I look at him as like I look at Pedroia. The difference being, at least with Pedroia, you've got to take into account age and injuries. Bogaerts is a steady guy at shortstop. Had a much better season defensively than I would have thought he was capable of. Although I think, as I've said before, I still think eventually he's going to move to a corner position.
Really?
But I
after
think
the defense he showed last year?
Listen, he had a wonderful defensive season. I just think he's going to end up somewhere else.
Because he's going to get too big.
Yeah, but that's just my thing.
I know, but why?
Because he's going to get too big, and I don't think. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying this again because I got criticized for saying he's not a big league shortstop. He's a big league shortstop, okay? I'm fully on board with that. But if another stud shortstop comes along in their farm system and proves himself major league ready, then you've got a guy you can move to the corner position. What if Pablo is a bust, and what if a year from now they have an opening at third base, maybe 2 years from now?
They got Yohan Moncada, who's going to play probably some third base because Pedroia's here through 2021.
Yeah, and I don't know that I see Moncada as a big league second baseman anyway. I think given his size, there are other places he can be used. He could be that third baseman.
Yeah.
And but to answer your question as briefly as possible, you are correct. Bogaerts is just you just pencil him in and write his name down and worry about other things.
Right. And I think maybe you look to see his power get a little bit better, but not if he's going to sacrifice his overall success at the plate like he did 2 years ago.
Yeah, I see him as the doubles guy who will hit home runs because he gets good swings. I would never consider him a power hitter. You can hit 15 or 20 home runs and still not be a power hitter. Wade Boggs hit, I think, 27 home runs one year, 1989, I think. And yet Wade Boggs was never a power hitter. It was just one of those years for him.
Yeah. Well, I think that wraps it up for today. We thank you so much for watching, and thanks for reading.
I'm going to get my walker and go up to the press box now.